Never seen a smile so big on my little old lady's face until I tell her I'm going fishing all weekend. Pack up all of my bait and I make plans for 7:45 and I swing around, pick up my date for the weekend. Some reason she seems to please when I'm leaving. There's something I'm missing when I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing. When I'm gone fishing.
Yeah, baby.
Yes, sir. Good evening, CFN. So happy to see all of you CFNers. I'll tell you, you are your appearance here every week, man. I'll tell you, means the world. Absolutely means the world. Steve Shaw, nice to see you. I had heard that Steve might be busy, so it's nice to see him with us. Manny, stay with me. We've got your question coming up. Eve, how you doing, my friend? Corey is a longtime CFNer. Unfortunately, fishes. Well, I shouldn't say unfortunately. Fishes on the other side of the pond. He is, I would have to say, one of the most dedicated American U.S. chapter CFNers we have. He's here every Monday, and we truly appreciate that, Corey. Tony's another one that's here on a regular basis. Lloyd, can't say enough about you. Steve, yeah, we're going to be getting to that, the announcement. We have a video that we're going to be playing as well to talk about that, but we do have a fair bit to get to, so I want to, hello to everyone. If there's anyone that I missed, James Shemery, PS, watch out for those. Yeah, no kidding. Mark Wolf's in the house. Get to you as well. Klassen, nice to see you. Erica's in the house as well. Anyway, howdy. How's everybody? I want to get to as much as we can because we do have a full show. Big shout out to, of course, the Demers family. And that is Alain and his 4 kids that he takes out on the ice. He was the Focus on the Family feature for the month of January. The legacy members will be picking the February feature momentarily, but I want a big shout out to Jeanette up at Pro Tackle in Timmins. And this is what is so magical about CFN. So I reached out to Pro Tackle because with each feature, we are donating $100 towards the family to a tackle store that they frequent. And it just so happened Pro Tackle up in Timmins is where they go. So I spoke to co-owner Jeanette and sent her the money to for the Demers family to enjoy. Demer family, I should say. It's more French than English. So they're going to have a good time. And as I said, just knowing that she knew what CFN was and she was just overjoyed at this initiative that we've taken on. And of course, anybody who knows CFN now definitely knows it is a focus on the family going forward. And all you incredible anglers out there that take your kids fishing. Because, listen, as I mentioned when we featured this, when we made the announcement, that's not easy. It's not easy to go out and catch trophy walleye, but it's even harder when you got 4 kids in tow. I wouldn't know. Because you know what? At the end of the day, there's no way I could have taken my 4 kids out and achieved this. So, Alain, I got to tip my hat to you, my friend. The fact that you're able to do that, take 4 kids out and catch trophy fish on top of that, good on you. Fantastic, fantastic stuff. Of course, the Winter Fish Fest is currently going on. And our Facebook submissions are starting to increase. Notably, we did reach out to Mark Wolf, got your address. We'll be sending your prize pack off this week, my friend, for being the most active angler, CFN angler on week 1. And I do dare say we have a runner-up. I don't know if we have enough prizes to do it. I will take a count and see if we can, but there is definitely a second week winner if there was a winner. But I certainly want to congratulate Daryl Nelson, Amanda, Lucas Landry, Bill Landry for all of your submissions on the Facebook side of things. We'll be verifying those probably in the coming days, I would say. Yeah, absolutely. Really appreciate everything that you folks are doing. I can't get over the number of submissions on the MyCatch app. Like, it's over 1,000 now. It's incredible. So big shout out to all you anglers. And as I said, hope you all win. But as it is right now, these are the prizes. We're going to be doing Attorney Tuesday tomorrow. So stay tuned to that. And of course, we cannot thank all of our sponsors. Not even sponsors. These guys are partners. These guys are family. Ugly Boys, Meigs, North Shore Tackle, Powell Castings, and of course, our beloved Camp McIntosh. Can't thank Camp McIntosh. And not only do you have a chance to win this if you're using the MyCatch app via the Winter Fish Fest and CFN Fish Shop, but if you come to the show, and this is the Spring Fishing and Boat Show, which starts this Friday, if you come to the OFC Nation booth, where you will probably see the likes of Manny will probably be there, Steve Shaw will probably be there, I'm going to be there. I don't know how many other CFNers are going to be there. Moose is going to be there. Jeff Richard is going to be there. If you come by and fill out a ballot, and you must take one of these Camp McIntosh brochure, and this basically all it does is tease you even more. I mean, some of the butte fish that they catch up there. But if you want to be off the grid, smack dab in some of the best fishing Georgian Bay has to offer, this is a camp. And I actually was talking to a gentleman today about this place who loves his muskie fishing. And I made sure I handed him one of these before he left our seminar today, because he loves Georgian Bay muskie and had no idea about Camp McIntosh. So that's what it's all about. And of course, that is this weekend. Do have a question that I wanted to ask the masses. I'm not sure if anybody has an answer, but this comes from Manny. Handy capable pricing for the Spring Fishing and Boat Show. His wife is in a wheelchair, and I don't want to call her handicapped. She's handy capable, very handy capable. She makes great sauce, as I'm going to find out. And heck of an angler too, by the way. But if anybody has an answer in regards to handy capable pricing for the Spring Fishing and Boat Show, haven't had a chance to ask Moose. We've been really busy trying to get the booth together. But if anybody has an answer for Manny, that would be great. If we don't get one, Manny, tonight, I will make sure to reach back out to me, and I will find out for you if there is special pricing. But great question, Manny. I love making sure that all of your questions get answered. If I don't have the answer, I know a few people that might know, and they're going to be coming up next with Big Jim Lawrence and, of course, Jay Barnucz. Second question is from our good buddy Fernando. And I have a feeling Cliff Morris is the gentleman that I'm going to reach out to, Fernando, in regards to this. But Victoria, BC charters at the end of March, wondering what are available or what is available to him. I would probably say you're going to be bottom fishing. I don't know how much of a salmon fishery there is right now for you to enjoy, but I dare say you're probably going to go out and bottom fish. It's going to be cold, so make sure you dress warmly for it. But if you are going after halibut or rockfish or any other kind of bottom dwelling fish out there, you are going to have a blast. So Fernando's looking for any charters that anybody might know out in the Victoria, BC area that would be able to house him and possibly a partner of his or a friend of his that will be accompanying him. So by all means, reach out to Fernando. I will look in the comments if anybody does have an answer. But yeah, if you do, I would greatly, greatly appreciate that. And of course, the last question I have is from our buddy Ryan Dakin. Recommended outfitters for Lake Nipissing. He's planning to go the end of February. There's a few that I have that I can mention. But if there's something that I'm missing or someone that I'm missing, a great outfitter that you'd like to pump the tires, by all means, throw it in the comments right now. Make sure to tag them so that one, I can see it, Dakin can see it, and anybody else who's up in the Nipissing area can see it. So as I said, this is just the beginning. Lots of announcements, to say the least. Of course, we were talking about the Winter Fish Fest, and again, we can't thank our partners, but we don't normally ask this of our CFNers to do, but some of you guys are just rare breeds, and when you go the extra mile, we like to share that. And I will have to say to our good buddy Bill Landry, I didn't put the whole video together, but let's just say I took some snippets. And Bill, love you, bro. That video meant a lot. Have a listen.
Good morning, CFN. I can't emphasize how great the CFN is for people, kids, everybody like me. I mean, I've got such great resources at my fingertips, and you just ignore it until you think, hey, wait a minute, this can help me. And it turns out you have a lot of fun while competing. So I guess I better get to it. Have a good day, everybody, because it's a family thing. And tight lines.
I love how the dogs are playing in the background and entertain themselves. That's awesome. But Bill, big shout out to you. But nobody has to do that. But we truly appreciate when you do. It means the world. At the end of the day, everybody enjoys a good pat on the back or a positive comment, and that's what CFN and our community is all about: being positive. At the end of the day, there's enough negativity and crap in the world. Can we not go somewhere and see positivity and at least a pat on the back? Means a lot. Okay. In terms of next announcement, I do want to mention, of course, this event, which I am very proud to announce. This is the Rise Fishing Pals first annual ice fishing tournament. It is this Saturday, the 18th. Registration is going to start from 9 to, well, the fishing is from 9 to 3. Registration starts at 8. It is going to be at the Iron Bridge Rec Center. So hopefully you know where the Iron Bridge Rec Center is. But as I said, our good buddy Ryland has put this on, and he was featured in a CBC recent article, which was really, really cool. The unfortunate blemish to all this is, of course, the bullying he received, unfortunately, on our platform, and no fault of our own. It has been since dealt with, but sorry that it had to happen, Ryland, but love the fact that you are venturing forward, that you have turned this into a massive positive. And what is so cool about this is, for young anglers, you're going to get fed. You're going to be treated like royalty at this event. So as I said, this Saturday, registration starts at 8. Iron Bridge Rec Center. Come one, come all, ages 2 to 16. Hopefully the parents are in tow, and this becomes one heck of an event. But from what I've heard, the Baston family has put together one heck of an event, and this is going to be something. So if you have a young angler and like for something to do this Saturday, I highly recommend going to Rise Fishing Pals first annual ice fishing tournament. And last but not least, of course, the Ottawa Boat and Outdoor Show starts Thursday, February 23rd. Myself and Steve Shaw are going to be there. There's going to be a lot of CFNers there. I see the Bealers showing up. I know Big Jim's going to be there. Lawrence is going to be there. We're going to be talking to them all about that as well. So stay tuned to that. And I know there was so many other things that I was supposed to mention. And if I have forgotten, my sincerest apologies. But the show must go on. And with that, let's get to our good buddy, Big Jim Mclaughlin, right after a word from our sponsor. Big Jim's in the house.
Yo.
Hey, Jim.
What's going on?
Not much. Well, what has been exciting that's been going on in your world recently?
I don't know. I wore this all day.
Yeah, absolutely.
I wore that all day today.
That's awesome, buddy. Right on. I like that jersey. By the way. That jersey. It fits you nice.
The way it's filled out.
Oh man. Speaking of filled out, there was an announcement today. Steve just reminded me of it, but I wanted to play a little video. You talk about filled out. This man's trophy case is impressive, to say the absolute least. His accomplishments far exceed that of, I think, just about any angler that comes to mind.
Yeah, no, he's all on his own.
Yeah, I didn't even want to make a list of all his accomplishments because we'd be here all night talking about it. But to say that he's, well, you know what? Let's just play the video and you folks can decide yourself what this video means.
23, and I'm just about to start my 33rd season as a touring bass professional. And man, what a ride it's been. But I'm here today to announce that this is going to be my last season fishing professionally on tour. Family has supported me through it all. My wife and Jackson and Nicholas. Being on tour is tough. You know, spending so much time on the road, it's hard on your family. And I've done it for a really long time, and I've had so many great memories. I started my career with bass and fished the Bassmaster Tournament Trail for 28 years. And, you know, along the way, I made a lot of friends. I'm so thankful for Ray Scott for founding Bass and starting this whole dream of fishing tournaments that so many of us follow to this day. Over the years, with my time at Bass, you know, I made a lot of great friends, so many great memories, accomplished a lot, won a lot of titles and championships and things along the way, and tried to be a great ambassador to help grow the sport and pave the way for the next generation that's coming along. Another big part of the success of my career has been all the support that I've had from fans over the years. And I can't overstate enough just what that means to me. You know, I love this sport. I love sharing it with other people that are passionate just like me. And that's what it's all about. I mean, without the fans, we have no sport. So this year, I'm really looking forward to a lot of great fan interactions, a lot of special things that we're going to be doing. So stay tuned. We're going to see a lot more info on special things for all of our fans, not just my fans, but fans of the sport. So in closing, I am not retiring. You know, I still have as much drive and passion for this sport as I've ever had. I look forward to being a great voice for fishing, the outdoors, and conservation long into the future. And I'm just looking forward to what the next chapter of my career is going to be. So I look forward to getting back out on the road, getting back on tour, seeing everybody, and having a lot of fun this season. We'll see you out on the water.
Yeah. You know what, Jim? I'm not even going to say anything. This is totally for you to take from this point, because only you truly knows what this gentleman's going through.
You know, when I came, I had to run down again today, and when I was coming out again, there's a bunch of goats in the field, and they all had a picture of KVD on their side. You know what I'm saying? It's
yeah, absolutely.
It's just you know, like take it to a money standpoint. He's won over $7 million. Second place is David Dudley with 4.2.
Jeez.
You know, it's, you know, a lot of people don't know who David Dudley is because he's such a laid back, quiet guy. He was at Andy's show a couple of years ago. Those guys didn't even realize who it was. You know, he's just a quieter guy. You know, he's a different character, right? He you know, he came into an already big time existing sport. It wasn't that he was, you know, it wasn't like Roland Martin in the beginning or Bill Dance. These guys that, you know, like I tell you, I think Bill Dance, I think we've talked about this before. Bill Dance won like 9 of the first 22 BSS tournaments or something. Like, you know, sort of says something. But yeah, no, he's just he's an incredible person. I was thinking about it today, and I looked up. I Googled his net worth, and it comes in somewhere around $85 million. Wow. Like, that is a lot of money. And
listen, and when you
gets away at,
yeah,
the foundation and everything else that he does, if he would have been a me type guy, Well, he wouldn't have the money he has if he was like that.
Yeah.
But no, he's just a wondrous person. You saw him. Like, I'm not retiring.
Yeah.
He's had enough bouncing around in boats when you have to, not when you want to. You know, like the other time I get out here to the back, you know, just in the Lund, and I'll be out there and I've been alone and whatever else out in the boat, and there'll be some waves, and I gotta wind it out as far as it goes. You know, you saw, you know, most of the time with me, you're barely on plane. I said, there's no rush. You go, you do what you're doing, you know.
Well, I think it's the company you keep, but that's just another thing, Jim. I didn't want to go.
So, like, you mean the boat's going slower, or?
Yeah. Well, because there's way too much weight in it, but that's the whole. But at the end of the day, Jim, like I have to ask you, being in a situation like him and stepping back in a way that would suggest that perhaps is it possible that tournament fishing doesn't have that je ne sais quoi to Kevin anymore? Has he accomplished just about anything and everything that could be accomplished as an angler?
You know, that I wouldn't want to ask the man that. I really wouldn't. And like, I mean, I know him. I've been around him, done things with him. He's a wonderful person. Like when we saw him at Andy's show a few years ago, him and Mercer are standing on one side of the tank and I'm on the other side. And they're just there. They've got a hot dog and a drink. They're just there. And I walk up and I look through the tank at the two of them, and I sort of look over the top of my glasses and I go like this. And Kevin Van Dam puts his mouth on the glass of the tank and blows so his cheeks go out. That's the kind of guy he is. And why is he hanging out with Mercer?
Yeah, no kidding. He needed more material because I'll tell you, Dave doesn't run out of it. How he finds time for everything he does is like as I said, and that's Dave Mercer. And as busy as that man is, I can't imagine how busy a guy like KBD is.
They run senseless.
It truly is, and of course,
yeah. And they don't realize, you know, these guys go on a tournament, so they get there 2 days early. So they go over to Walmart for two hours in the evening. Then they go to a big tackle store or a small tackle store.
Yeah.
And there for a couple of hours. And now with social media and everything, they post that they're going to be there.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, these guys are like, you know, guys like Kevin Van Dam, when they show up, people show up.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of them that enjoy what he has.
No, 100%.
He uses it for everybody's benefit. He's just you know, it's an old country saying I learned when I moved out and we lived beside the farm to raise the kids. A top drawer guy, that's a country saying, and Kevin Van Dam is a top drawer guy. He never forgot where he came from. You know, he never forgot when he used to stand and dish out minnows at Randy's place there over and stuff like that. He never forgot that stuff.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. And like, you know, I don't even begin to be in the same beginning of the same league as a guy like that's in, but I still think everything's kind of the same. I know that I can be as competitive as hell. I'm also a lot older than him too, and I think as you get older, it wanes a little bit, you know, something. But I mean, he is. I can be as competitive as hell still. It might not always be in fishing, but if push comes to shove, and I think I can do something, I'm doing it, you know.
Yeah.
And it's
it's interesting you talk about Kevin's age. Am I the only one that sort of thought he was still in his 30s? Like he doesn't look like he's aged much. Yes, he definitely looks younger in some of those other early photos.
Oh yeah,
but he looks like he's a teenager.
But the time he spent in the outdoors, you think, like, you know, people think they're outdoors people. These tournament guys, they spend 250 days a year in the sun standing on the front of a boat.
Yeah.
You know, if they have to face a 4-foot wave and fish, they face a 4-foot wave and they fish. If they have to drive 30 miles in a 4-foot wave, they do it. And let me tell you, most people don't realize how big a 4-foot wave is. You know, they come home, oh yeah, we were out 4-foot waves today. No, you probably weren't. You're probably in a 20-inch wave. You know, it's you don't realize how big waves like that are and the beating you can take. He's the best that there is. He's always got time for people, and it's people like that really. You know, just last in the business. They just last. They hang out, and I assume you're going to see him do a lot of work with the foundation he's got. I would assume. And the other thing is he's monster with Strike King, and they do a lot of TV.
And
So,
I would say at this stage, he could pretty much pick his future. I mean, at the
yeah,
end of the day,
he'll do whatever he wants, but I'm sure he's going to have a lot to do with Strike King. I'm sure he's going to be doing a lot of videos, social media stuff. You know, he won't be doing it, but he'll be in it. You know,
yeah.
they'll have it all professionally done and edited, and they'll have all kinds of tips. But the TV shows, you know, promoting all the Strike King stuff, as it is now, he does a pile of that, and he's only going to do more of it.
Yeah. No, I think one of the biggest fears when you watch, say, football, and what a game that was last night, the Chiefs and the Eagles put on a heck of a show for us. Congratulations again to the Chiefs. And you know what? Talk about an underdog. Not a lot of folks had the Chiefs as winners of that game, but they persevered. But when you see older NFLers that have, sort of met that threshold of their prime and they decide it's time to retire, a lot of folks in the NFL ranks, you know, they tremble a little bit when they find out that they're going up into the press box and they're actually going to start, narrating the games and adding their sort of, their respective to whatever it is that they're seeing. Because in a lot of folks, a lot of situations, a lot of folks share a lot of secrets. And I'm sure Kevin Van Dam has a few that he could probably share. And a lot of these guys are probably hoping that he doesn't go up in the booth because he's going to end up sharing all their secrets.
Trust me, there's no secrets in fishing.
No, that's yeah, absolutely. But yeah, no, just a decorated career. Just an honor to be associated in a community that has him as an ambassador, because what he has done for angling, especially with having to sort of find his way as a young angler amongst some of the biggest names that you just mentioned, some of the most established names in bass fishing, and how he managed to persevere and become, as you said, a GOAT. That's a true accomplishment.
I mean, when he won that MLF tournament last year, he just dominated once he got on it. And this is what he always had in his mind. He would figure out, he was like a fish. It was like he could look under the water and decide what the fish were going to do and was in their head.
Yeah. And
you see it so often with him that he won by big margins. Yeah, he won by lesser margins too. But, he's won tournaments by he did 15, 20 pounds ahead.
Yeah.
It's absolutely nuts. Like that happens the odd time in certain place. Somebody used to happen when guys used to find giant bunches of largemouth bass on milfoil flats, which is what I used to love to do. And it happens. Look, it happened to Timmy Horton that time when they all criticized him because he came back to the dock and ordered a pizza. Came back a couple hours early. So you got I forget how big his lead was. It was 15 pounds. So he's caught now more than he caught in the first 3 days of the tournament every day. He's got the biggest catch he's had. He's got 24 pounds or 26 pounds or something. So he figures, well, it's almost impossible for me to lose because somebody's going to have to catch 35 pounds. And this is the most that's been caught. I caught the most that have been caught so far yesterday and whatever. So he figured it's supposed to blow like heck this afternoon. There's supposed to be 40-mile-an-hour winds. So he takes his time and he idles back up. Took him 2.5 hours. He went back to the far end of Lake Champlain to the way in, pulled up on a dock, put the recycle on the fish, and ordered a pizza, sat on the deck and ate it. I don't see anything wrong with that. A couple of times when I've known I was going to win, I definitely started my way back a little earlier, sometimes considerably earlier, just to be sure you got there, regardless of the weather, just to be sure you got there. And I never had to worry about it, but I never had a problem doing it. It never cost me anything for doing it.
No, it set in my eyes. It sets up that hare and the tortoise scenario where the hare decides to take a nap in the afternoon, and lo and behold, the tortoise manages to take the lead. But no, do you have a favorite story about Kevin Van Dam that you'd like to share?
The one I just told you, when he came to Andy's show, and you were on a personal level with him, he's just a dink. That's the way to describe him. People describe people as dinks, and he is. He's he's just a clown in the crowd. He's funny as heck. His sense of humor is just offside, and he's just a pleasure to be around. You always have a good time with him.
Wow.
He's always got time for people. He just he makes you feel good just being around him. He's so positive, and yet I think he's so positive that he's almost scared that something's not going to go right. You know what I mean? It like goes right around. It hasn't gone 360, but it's almost there. It's almost right all the way around to the other side again, as far as he can be, and he's scared that it's going to, unwind on him. I just get a feeling of something like that out of. He just doesn't.
Well, I will say this. I mean, his humility is something that I don't know the man, never had a chance to meet him, but just the videos that I've seen and how he sort of conducts himself, he's just got a certain sense of humility. And one episode that I remember, don't know the exact details, but basically he was demonstrating a certain kind of swim bait, and when he casted it out, it snapped. And there was no cut, there was no break in the video. I don't know if it was a live video, but he's just like, yep, okay, so that's take one. Here's take two. That's not how you do it. This is how you cast. You would think by now I would have figured out how to do it, but he was just so humble. And that's the one thing that I take away from him. I mean, with all the accolades, all the trophies, he could be a hard person to talk to just because of what he's achieved in life. But he's so humble, and that to me is.
I remember a time with Izumi at the sportsman show getting up on the tank, and when he got to about the second stair on the ladder behind the curtains, he almost fell, and he had a handful of rods with him, and they all got jammed up in the safety rail and everything, and I'm telling him, don't pull it, you're going to break your rods, and the guys are laughing because we got microphones on. And like they're live, eh? And I always used to heckle him. It was something that we used to do. It was what we did, Like he'd be going up the ladder, and all the people would hear as Bob got to the top was with me, down the back, past him up his. And people like that. You're just having fun, eh? So Bob gets up there and he starts talking about the first thing, and he goes to cast the lure out, and the rod just goes, snaps over, right? And he goes, yeah, this is a new model, but I like the old ones more. He reels it in, and I saw it break, and I went halfway up the ladder, and he handed it to me, eh? And he said something like, here, Jim, this is just for you or something. So they all laughed, And he picks up the next one, eh? What happens?
Same thing?
Same thing. Break.
No.
Break, eh? Because they all got broken the rail when he was tugging.
Oh, right.
So he does that, and he stands there. And I've got the mic, and I'm live. I can talk on his show if I want, eh? Because he had heckled me about it, and I said, yeah, you remember when I told you not to pull those on the rail, Bob? And he folded over. He was laughing. He totally lost it for like 3 or 4 minutes.
That's hilarious.
It's that same type of thing, there's something that I really see in all the guys that are at the top in fishing and have been there, is that I'm just as happy when my buddy wins as when I win. You're not as happy. You're 99% as happy. If it couldn't be him, it's me. You know what I'm saying? It's that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And he's like that too. But I mean, he can get pretty animated when he wins. You saw some of those little clips they just showed there.
Yeah.
Those skinny legs when he landed on them. I was scared they were going to break. There ain't much to him, but I'll tell you one thing: he can catch fish.
See, and that's it. At the end of the day, I mean, I think with some of us, we also have to engage a certain sense of humility. Yeah, we're all human beings. You put your pants on the same way I do, but you know what? You can catch fish, Jim. And KV, my good Lord, dude, it has been an honor to sit back and watch you accomplish the many accomplishments that you've had in your illustrious career, and as an ambassador or however you want, icon, GOAT,
same thing at a different level in a different place.
Yeah, he has accomplished so much that we and you, doesn't matter if you're a Jim Mclaughlin, a Bob Izumi, a Gord Pizer. Let's be honest, we're all fans when it comes to KVD and his accomplishments.
Yep. Yeah, and it crosses the boundaries of companies. Like, it's not like, oh, he's a lose guy or whatever. You're
100%.
just as happy.
And he's done a very good job keeping a clean name, much like yourself.
Oh, squeaky.
Yeah.
You need, like I'm sure that you could. It's crazy. He's like if you took a scraper, you could squeegee oil off him. There's not a sound. I don't know how he does it, but you just thinking. I mean, even a couple of times when he's got into some little snaggles, he has a very firm way of legitimately talking his way through it and out of it, and no form of trickery. Boy, he lays the facts on the line.
Well, let's be honest. He must be an intelligent individual, because as you've just pointed out, and I'm not going to try and beat the dead horse, but you got to be witty. You've got to be smart to be able to talk your way out of tough situations. And I commend Kevin for that because, as I said, he's alive and kicking, and as you said, squeaky clean.
And they're mostly spawned from jealousy. Eh?
This is true, but as I said, I mentioned, the humility. At the end of the day, Jim, I've seen you have it. I've seen Bob Zimmy have it. I've seen Gord have it, and Lawrence and Jay Barnucz, who we're lucky enough to talk to every Monday, they have it. You might be a little bit better anglers than some of us, but at the end of the day, we're all human. We all put our pants on the same way. But that's really cool. Now, you did mention the show that's upcoming. Manny did have a question in regards to handicap folks, or handy capable as I prefer to call them. Is there, I know there's special parking, is there a discount at all that you could think of, Jim?
I have no idea what they do on that. If it's something that's usually done at shows, I would imagine it would be done. I would imagine it'd probably be like a seniors rate or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But he could find out. Just ask on the Facebook page and they'll tell them right away.
Yeah, 100%. As I said, I may not know the answer. Even maybe Jim doesn't know the answer.
Oh, we could find that. Yeah.
We will find the answer out for you, but really appreciated that. But of course, the shows are coming up. You are going to be at the Spring Fishing and Boat Show here in Mississauga, Toronto, Malton, whatever you want to call it.
I'm going to come over on Friday morning. I got to pick up Mr. Pfizer's grandson Liam down at Queens.
Nice.
We got to drop his girlfriend off in Coburg and then head right over to the International Center. I figure we'll get there an hour or so before it opens. But I'm going to be the meet and greet interview type guy at this one.
Nice.
Just so they can sort of stick me in one spot, so I don't have to move around or stand a lot, because this is getting to not be fun.
No, I can imagine. And Jim, if you want any tips on how to host a meet and greet, by all means, I'm available after 9:00.
Cool. That's awesome.
I'm just kidding. No, we look forward to seeing you and a whole bunch of other CFNers at the Spring Fishing and Boat Show.
Yeah, because I spent the week here freezing my butt off in the garage, going through all the boxes of the stuff for the pond, making sure we got everything. There's like 40 boxes out there, and it was all. I'm good at like when we come home from the Ottawa show the week after next on the Monday, I'll sit out there if it's not too cold, and I'll go through everything, make sure all the boxes are open to dry, like anything we have, the decorations, the stuff, whatever is left, there'll be nothing put away wet to rot, and stuff like that. I'll write on the boxes what's there. And I did that the last time, but then almost 3 years went by. So I just wanted to look and find out for sure what's in there. But we've gathered up a good bit of stuff. It's still tough. Getting prizes and stuff ain't quite what it used to be.
All I can say is have no fear. Robin Hood will soon be here. Our good buddy Steve Shaw. He
sent me a picture, brought a tear to my eye.
Man, I tell you. So you kids that are coming to the Ottawa Sportsman Show, by all means, if you're going to fish at the trout pond, Mr. Shaw has made sure you're going to have lots of prizes.
Yep. Yeah, we had a great time at the Shimano meeting on Saturday at the mothership. It was awesome. Most of the guys were there. Some couldn't make it, like Lawrence. And he was probably out ice fishing. But maybe he couldn't get a ride. I should have asked him. I don't know.
Well, he was out in BC, and we're going to be talking to him shortly. And based on what the lead is for his segment, this boy's been busy. So who knows what
he
he's
should
been
have floated
doing.
back on one of those balloons.
Yeah. I don't even want to get on that topic.
We'd see him riding the missile like no,
Yeah.
Brooks.
What's
But
next?
no, it's the Ottawa show is coming next Monday. We're going to have Scott on for a few minutes with us.
Yeah,
manager of the show, and he'll give us a rundown down on everything. But it looks like it's going to be a good time. We got a lot of people back involved in the show. We got good seminars again. We've got John Anderson and Alicia Goodyear there talking about muskie. Brent Bocek's going to be there doing a seminar. He's going to be helping out Dave Chong with the little booth that Dave has there for everything you wanted to know about fishing. We've got them there. Dave Chong will be doing some seminars. I'm up on Saturday. We've got Jamie Pastilli, who's a guide. He's going to do a couple. Who else off the top of my head? I'm having a senior citizen hall, but there's just a Kara Carmichael.
Yeah.
Yep.
I have one ask, Jim. I have one ask. Friday night, if you could. We're honored and pleased and excited. We are going to be doing a live each night from the Spring Fishing and Boat Show in Mississauga. I would love if you could share a stool with me Friday night. We're going to have Moose running around from booth to booth. You and I are going to be hosting, and basically it will be a very impromptu, informal type meet and greet with the various presenters, the various folks who have booths, perhaps any of the leftover guests that are visiting the show. But each night before the end of each show, we're going to be doing a wrap up, and I would love for you to be my partner on Friday night.
I'll see what I can do, buddy.
Right on, dude. Right on.
It's going to be a long day.
Yes, I know.
We'll leave it here at 6, but we'll see.
So leave that open. But in the meantime, Jim, stay classy, dude. Thanks so much.
Always. And if anybody's out there ice fishing, be safe. There's still
Amen.
lots of ice where there was lots of ice from
100%.
what I've been talking to guys. Still good out there, but just-
Lake Nipissing and Couchiching, from what I understand, are the places to go.
Lots of ice.
Jim, you stay safe, dude, and we will see you this Friday, my friend.
Awesome, buddy. Take care, man.
Thanks for all you do, bud.
Always. Thank you.
And as always, Lawrence Gunther's up next. Looking forward to speaking to him. We missed him last week, but we won't be speaking to him till we have a word from our sponsor.
When it comes to Canadian food, we've got your back with flavors like lemon pepper, beer batter, campfire barbecue, lemon pepper dill, garlic butter and chives, and crispy Cajun. We've got a mix for every meal. Whether you're serving East Coast shrimp, West Coast salmon, succulent walleye, chicken wings, or veggies, we've got you covered. Coat your food in outdoor flavors. Available online or at these fine retailers.
Lawrence Gunther in the house. Oh, your mic is off right now. Let's see if I can fix it. No, it's muted on your side, Lawrence. It is muted on your side. And one thing that I did want to bring up while Lawrence is trying to find that, I didn't get to share this at the outset, but as we shared our good buddy Kelly Delorme last week.
There we go.
There you go. This is Rob Alspatch's back tailgate. And when you see the number of stickers, you think he's a fan of the Saskatchewan Ice Fishing Fanatics or the Saskatchewan Fishing Club. I tell you, but you've got the Saskatchewan chapter OFC sticker there, Team CFN. Oh, that's an old one. That Team CFN's an old one. And of course, the CFN Proud Angler. Thanks so much for sharing that, Rob. But love seeing these kind of photos. And of course, you, Lawrence, always a pleasure.
Always a treat to be on the show, you guys. And sorry for my absence last Monday, but I was en route to Vancouver for the Impact 5 conference and the Festival of Ocean Films.
Well, it sounds like it was action-packed, and I know we're probably going to get to some of it tonight. And if you, just in case, just a reminder, if anybody doesn't watch this tonight on Monday, this will be available on Bluefish Radio, Bluefish Canada, via our good buddy Lawrence Gunther and Lawrence Gunther Outdoors. So if you want to go back, it is always posted there on various sites, but Bluefish Radio will be hosting this, and we really appreciate the crossover promotion because it does us both good.
Yeah, it's popular. We're getting some good feedback on it, Scotty. Although they say that everyone saying, I should be questioning you on where you're getting your facts from, though. No,
Oh,
I'm
I
kidding. I'm
guarantee
just kidding.
you know what? Yeah,
Jerking your chain.
I have a lamp here. I got a lamp here, and I'm gonna rub it. No, I'm kidding.
Houdini. I thought you had a magic 8-ball or something, but
Yeah, I wish.
no, everyone's really impressed.
Make this job a lot easier. The fact finding makes it very difficult, and I would say one of the most humbling moments I had, it was one of those situations where I'm glad I got it wrong. But Dave Mercer joined us one night with Big Jim.
Yeah.
I
remember that.
Oh, buddy, I tell you, I was like this big. I rhymed off all these accolades, and I thought,
God.
I don't, and I swear it came from not a Facebook. It came from an internet site because I had gone on Facebook, and of course you have to be very cautious about what you see on Facebook. But went on a site that looked like, one of his, let's say his posse. I don't really know, maybe an agent or someone that was looking after his social media stuff wrote it, but it had a whole bunch of detailed accomplishments. And once I got through it all, Dave said, "Yeah, well, it would have been really cool if I had done any of that, but since
Oh my
I don't know who you're talking about." Anyway,
you handled it well,
move
though,
on
Scotty.
from that.
You rolled with
Dave
it, buddy.
was
You
awesome.
rolled with
Dave
it.
was absolutely awesome. But I said, you know
Yeah.
what, Dave? Well, that was the best $1.25 I ever spent getting all that information. I just took up the paper, I sketched it, I threw away. But needless to say, he took it like a champ, and you can't give a man like that enough accolades. So I don't mind getting something like that wrong. I'm good with it. I'm okay with that.
No, I know. You know what? We all get wrong information once in a while, and that's just part of what we are all about now, right? We're getting so much information bombarded at us all the time, trying to figure out, what's factually accurate and what just sounds accurate. It's impossible to do it all the fact checking all the time. So once in a while we got to get called out. But that's the good thing about social media is when you do get it wrong, you'll quickly find out that you were wrong.
100%. Sonia is asking, when you were out in BC, did you happen to run into a good friend of hers, Donnie Rosa?
No, you should have told me ahead of time. I ran into my friends at Water Rangers, and we're working on a program to put more fishing into their Water Ranger youth programs. These kids are going out with their app and their website tools and their testing kits, and they're sampling water. They want to fish too. So we're putting Bluefish Canada tips on how to fish sustainably while you're doing your water sample collecting. And it's a great partnership.
That is a great partnership. And a recent editorial that I believe either you wrote or you published suggested that there might be indications that would have us believing that fish, I'm not exactly sure what species it was, but fish will pick their environments based on a number of variables. And one of the biggest variable there is the stress. So for instance, if they are in a puddle of water and it has a diminishing amount of oxygen, they become stressed out and they want to move.
Mm-hmm.
So this is walking us down a path that, and I'm glad Jim's not with us right now. It might suggest that fish have more of a brain than we first gave them credit for.
Well, that's the question, right? And that's what I was trying to get across in the editorial. Fish aren't binary in that they're not just alive or dead. It's not one or the other, like a stalk of grass, right? We think of fish that way, often do, and have been for many, many, many centuries. If you look back at the way fish were caught, in nets, and even look in the pictures in the Bible, right? They caught them in nets and they dropped them into their boat. And I did this too as a cod fisher off Atlantic Canada. We were busy hand lining cod. We just stack them up in the containers on the back deck of the boat and just kept piling them in, never thinking that these fish are just slowly being suffocated and smothered as the weight piles on top of them. They're warming up in the sun. They're out of water. It's a cruel way to die if you think about it. We're really not even thinking about this at all. So fish do suffer. They can suffer, and it affects their life, and it affects the quality of the fish that we eat later. And they know this now. So there's a bunch of reasons why we should be thinking about, how happy are those fish down there? And I say happy, right? I'm using happy in quotes, because are they having the same feelings we have? Do they play? Do they get angry? Do they get lonely and depressed? Are they excited? I don't know. I mean, this is all about sentient beings, right? And there's not a whole lot of animals that are sentient, but we are starting to think that sentient, in its basic definition, sentient means that they can feel stress, that they can feel pain, that they can feel fear, and that they can feel, sick. So they can basically experience those fundamental feelings. Now, are they feelings like the way we think about feelings in terms of falling in love and stuff like that? No, but they are experiences that they can experience, and we need to think about that when we're talking about their habitat, when we're talking about the loss of their habitat, their loss of their spawning, their introduction of invasive species, lack of oxygen, too much, blue-green algae smothering things. There's a ton of things that can start to just build and build and build on their ability to just live their fishy lives. And at some point, it's just too much. It's just too much. And then you start to see the diminishment in their population, right? And that's the problem. But the problem actually starts way before that. The fact that their population diminishes is a symptom of all the rest of it.
So without getting too, I mean, at the end of the day, we certainly have heard the opinions that a group like PETA has in regards to feelings and
pain. Avoid
pain,
that.
And we do our best to avoid it, for the simple fact that all a group like PETA is interested in doing is taking away our ability to enjoy the outdoors.
Cancel fishing.
And cancel fishing is right up there. Hunting is probably right there as well, if not ahead of fishing. But at the end of the day, we're here to further the passion of angling. We are here to voice the concerns of those like us who enjoy the outdoors, and of course everything that goes along with it. At the end of the day, for us to say that fish have feelings, well, let us put it this way. At the end of the day, we know we're doing harm to a fish when we do certain things, and like any animal that we are intending to eat and consume, which, let's face it, that's I mean, I can't think of any other reason they were put on this planet, unless they're the canaries in the bodies of water. When they go belly up, they tell us that the water is poisonous. Like, outside of that, and I'm not trying to be funny, I really don't know what else they were put on this earth for.
When they populate in such huge numbers and they swim around in such huge schools, making it possible for us to find them and catch them in great numbers, and for other forms of predators to catch them in numbers and easily catch them. These are not animals that just hide like, squirrels in holes, right? I mean, there's some that do, but most of them are just swimming around out there, and they're designed in a way that they're meant to be caught and consumed.
Yeah. And there's a humane way, there's a practical way, there's benefits to a lot of it as well. When we talk about taking the stress out of a fish, leaving them in a live well, like you had mentioned, over a long period of time, with water temperatures increasing, just general crowding, you are putting undue stress on fish. Does that mean that things like bass tournaments can't function, or we can't have bass tournaments because of that? No, because there has been some technological advances when it comes to live wells, and tournaments require especially if they're live release, you have to make sure that you have a working live well, so that you are not putting your fish in too much harm. And of course, when you get to any of these live release tournaments, you will find out the amount of rehab that goes into these fish before they are released back into the wild. So
the amount of money we spend just to put those live wells in our boats, right, with the aerators and the recirculators and all the rest of it, right? I mean, we're insulation and all that. We're spending a lot of money on live wells to keep fish alive, so that we can do what we want to do in terms of tournaments. I think we in general, we care about the fish, and we understand as anglers that our fish calm, keeping them calm, keeping them, from darting around and bashing their heads into the into the sides of the live well and all of the rest of it, suffocating, getting warmed up and eventually dying in our live wells. That causes all of us a lot of pain, not just because we're going to get punished with penalties at the weigh-in scale for bringing in a dead fish, but just because we killed a fish, right? And not intentionally. So I think anglers have spent a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of wisdom and experience in learning how to do this right. I'm not criticizing recreational anglers. I'm just saying we're evolving, right? Look where we are compared to where our grandparents were. We like you said, we just had stringers, and we just put fish on stringers and drag them around behind the boat or whatever, and other things, or just piled them up on the shore, or we did a lot of things. We didn't do it using the knowledge we have today because we didn't have that knowledge back then, but now we do. And now we can actually extend that to the pre-captured fish, and knowing what we know, we have responsibility to safeguard those fish that are swimming around out there and make sure stupid things don't happen to them.
100%. I don't think there's anybody that's listening tonight that we have to stress the importance of catch and release. I don't think there's anybody that's listening tonight that we have to suggest that, holding up stringers of fish like we used to in yesteryear, or at least, going fishing and putting fish all on stringers and having them bang up against the side of the boat and all that stuff. I don't think there's anybody here watching that we have to go over and explain how that is not conducive to good fish handling and respectful handling. At the end of the day, if you're going to eat a fish, a lot of folks like to bleed out a fish, and it makes perfect sense to do so. Some like to bonk them on the head, and again, you might look at it as cruelty, but as I said, I forget what the movie was. Would you rather get shot 10 times in the leg or one to the head?
Yeah.
And what is more humane when it comes to an animal that you're about to consume? And I would have to say the one shot to the head is far more humane than, the bashes up against the transom, or starting to warm up in the live well and be stressed with my other buddies that I'm crowding with. I have to agree with you.
That's how we do it in slaughter facilities, right? We stun animals and then we bleed them out. We stun them so that they don't feel the bleeding out. They don't get scared when that happens, right? But that's what we're doing, and that's what
I have to agree. The meat tastes a lot better. I mean, unless you are not someone that eats a lot of fish, perhaps you wouldn't know the difference. But to anybody who has bled out a fish to one that has not been bled out, I can tell a difference. To me, it's a far better texture of meat.
Oh yeah.
But yes, no, Sonia, to your point, you're 100% right. We have to be very careful when we talk about the fish feelings, because there are groups out there that are just trying to ban it altogether. And yeah, when it comes to fish handling, Corey, you're 100% right. When it comes to sturgeon, it depends on the body of water that you're fishing, including the province or country that you're fishing in, what the handling practices are, what the requirements are. Make sure you know your rigs. Again, I don't have to emphasize it to this group. This group gets it, and we just wish there were more of you. But unfortunately, back in the day, and it's not unfortunate, it's just the way it was, all of you probably would have come up in the comments as a typical older, all of you would have, including myself. You would have had fish on a stringer because that's just how it was.
So we were told how to do it, right? That's that's the equipment that came with the fishing packages that we were given as young kids, and that's what we grew up with. That's what we saw our parents and grandparents use. So yeah, but we evolve, and I'm not saying that was wrong. I'm just saying we evolve. We can't rewrite history, and we can't judge people, but I think it's important that we continue to evolve and talk about this. One thing I say to kids when we're doing youth programs is that you hold up sunfish and bluegill and perch and you look and you point out all the little pokes and pricks all over their body, and you say, you think these are there to protect them. I said, but they still get swallowed alive all the time. And the only thing that really stops a predator from swallowing these fish alive successfully is the size. And sometimes they just swallow one that's just too big and it just doesn't go all the way down the hatch. And that's the only thing that causes them grief, is when that fish only gets halfway down the hatch. Otherwise, they're fine. If I said, you think about putting that, bluegill in your mouth. We couldn't do it, but fish do it all the time. So don't tell me, fish have the same feeling, ability to feel pain in their mouths that we have. Not at all.
100%. And George, you do bring up a great point. It goes far beyond the release aspect of fish, whether it is that we're trying to better the fishery or be recognized as practicing catch and release. Because at the end of the day, how you fish for a species of fish ultimately determines whether you're going to be able to release it. If you're fishing, let's say for walleye in 50 feet of water, let's say you're going down to the Bay of Quinte, and those fish are at 70, 80 feet. You put the downrigger down and you drag whatever plug it is you've got behind you, and you catch that fish in 80 feet of water. You're going to want to listen to some of the techniques and tips on how to take that fish home and bleed it out and properly prepare it for table fare, because at 80 feet, you're not releasing that walleye. So
it's not going back alive. No.
Great
and
point.
That's interesting to hear about those Lake Erie guides, right? That take people out walleye fishing. They keep it all because they know they're catching fish 40, 50, 60 feet down, and they know you can't put those fish back. So they say, you caught your limit, we're done. And you go back to the dock.
And speaking of which, I don't know if Captain Kevin's watching. He usually does our live broadcast. But speaking of Lake Erie, we are going to be right now it's in the beginning stages, but we're hoping to have an event down on the western basin of Lake Erie. And I want to take down a couple CFNers and show you how remarkable that fishing is. They've got a great little motel that's set up. It's going to be a two-night event. Basically, we'll get down there Friday, Saturday, and then leave Sunday. But it will be fishing like you've never experienced. We'll eat your body weight in fish, and you'll be amazed at how quickly you catch your limit down on that end of the lake. It's remarkable. Just
walleye have taken over. I mean, the perch are disappearing as the walleye have taken over.
Yeah. Jeremy, you talk about the spines. So the spines, I thought it helped keep the predator to only eat them from one direction so they can see them trying. And at the end right at the beginning and at the end of the day, every fish is designed to hold on to the fish that they're hoping to eat. They do this in a manner to not only perhaps suffocate it, but make it easier to swallow in the direction that they want. Obviously, when it comes to a bluegill or a black crappie, a pike or any other fish, it's going to grab what it can and hopefully hold that fish long enough so it'll subdue it to the point where eventually it'll be able to swallow it the way it wants to take it in. Because, trying to take a bluegill or a black crappie the opposite way, you're going to have a bad time.
They figure that out pretty quick. So don't tell me fish can't think these problem solve, right?
Yeah.
They understand problem solving. They know if they try to swallow that thing tail first, it's not going to go well for them. So they kill it, they stun it. And then when they feel the fight's gone out of it, they let it go and position it head first down the hatch.
Yeah, 100%. So to your point, George, I dare say, I don't know if there's a lot of science out there when it comes to catch and release. And I'll ask you as well, Lawrence. George is a leading expert when it comes to some topics like this. But what science is out there when it comes to catch and release? Is there a lot of science?
There's a lot being done, and it has to do with bear trauma, like you were talking about with the walleye. Has to do with water temperature, like Lake Michigan. When you're down catching lake trout 100 feet down in 55 degrees water, and then you bring them up to the surface in August, and the surface temperature is 80 degrees. Lake trout can deflate their swim bladder on the way up through burping kind of thing. They can release the gas, so they don't experience bear trauma like salmon. They don't, but just the fact that you're taking a fish out of 55 degrees water and then releasing it into 80 degrees water after a fight, those fish don't do well. They don't do well. We're finding that out. So they're finding that out in the Pacific Ocean too, that there's issues around catch and release sometimes. So there is science being done. And and we need to start to hear about that science and understand what that science means. It's like, taking muskie out of the water in August when the water's plus 80 degrees. Should you take those fish out of the water for those grip and grin shots? No. You ask any fly fisher now, and they do not take the trout out of the river when they're caught. They unhook them in the water. They don't skid them up on the beach anymore, onto the gravel beds anymore, because they realize that takes all the slime off their scales and leaves them vulnerable. So they've really evolved their catch and release practices. There's a lot of great practices going on there. The science just isn't published widely, and that's unfortunate. But the people who care are finding it and incorporating it and using common sense and developing these best practices. It's wonderful, the knowledge that's being developed across Canada.
And one individual that George is asking us to look up if we want more information when it comes to catch and release, Dr. Stephen Cook, who's been around for a number of years. I remember reading a lot of his stuff when it came to raising walleye. He's out of Carleton University. I think he's a professor there now.
Yeah, he runs the Cook Lab. He's got 250 students under him.
There you go. So I'm not sure. Did he study at Carleton as well?
I'm not sure, but he's the chair of theology for Canada. He's got tons of, he's a member of the Royal Canadian Geographical Society. He does a lot of work in the States, in the southern states, with bonefish and permit. So he really. Bonefish are very susceptible to catch and release mortality, and he's done a lot of that research as well. It's not popular research all the time because it makes us question, how our practices. Sometimes we realize what we think we were doing right, and all of a sudden it's not right anymore. So, but we just have to be open-minded, because if we're not going to be open-minded, the generation coming behind us is, and they're just going to look at us and call us dinosaurs.
100%. And George, he said, as I mentioned, Dr. Stephen Cook, look him up. He also has a group called Keep 'Em Wet.
That's a charity in the United States. It's a what I call a 501 charity. It's a friend of his, and Stephen Cook is an advisor to that charity, just like he's an advisor to Bluefish Canada. So he's got many fingers in many pies. But yeah, the Keep 'Em Wet. It used to be Keep 'Em Wet. They changed the name to Keep Fish Wet. The keep them wet.
Yeah, because I would imagine if you Googled that as a title, I can't imagine what comes up.
Yeah, they changed it about 3 or 4 years ago to Keep Fish Wet.
Thanks to Jason Barnucz, who's here. He has the link. That is the link to go to. Yeah. And of course, this is another link also that you can go to. But needless to say, there is lots of information that we can access, whether it pertains to our species of fish, our bodies of water. I'm not sure, but Dr. Stephen Cook, I know, has done a lot of work on Canadian waters, so I'd be interested to see some of his stuff. So, George, thanks for that. Now, you've got some news bulletins you want to get to as well.
Let's do it.
Right on.
So there's, out on the West Coast, the Minister of Fisheries is going to decide if they're going to take the open pen fish aquaculture pens out of the ocean. And the Department of Fisheries and Oceans just released a scientific study that says there's no significant linkage between sea lice and that are generated and around these aquaculture pens, and what happens to small smolt when they're coming back down the rivers and passing by these pens to go into the ocean and coming in contact with those sea lice. This study says there's no significant correlation between that contact and the mortality of those salmon smolts. That you can't blame the pens for salmon smolts dying. And I tell you, 21 top scientists just signed a paper and a letter to the DFO saying that the way this research was conducted, the way it was reported, would not meet any significant journal, any credible journal's publication requirements.
Okay, let's just take a step back for a second, because I'm pretty sure you've been on here before suggesting that DFO has recognized the error of their ways and that these pens were going to be removed. are we suggesting now that these pens are not going to be removed per se? They might just be moved in general?
This study was originally drafted last summer. It was written last summer. It was just released 2 weeks ago. The decision by the minister is supposed to come out in the next few weeks. So the timing is suspicious.
Wow. I don't know how you folks feel, but yeah, that seems like smoke and mirrors going on there. At the end of the day, I think everybody knows, whether you're a biologist, a fish biologist, marine biologist, or whatnot, that sea lice comes from overcrowding. That is one of the biggest culprits, and it certainly betters the chances of your fish catching sea lice when they are overpopulated and condensed. So how it doesn't have any, I can understand maybe not the best example, but the fact that there are no correlations, that's hard to believe.
No significant correlations that would cause you to say there, this has to stop, or because it's impacting the smolts. There can be a small correlation, but it's insignificant. So that's they're not saying it doesn't exist. They're just saying it's insignificant.
So we're opening back up the topic, or perhaps giving the green light to the exercise of these pens, like raising fish in pens. And I thought no more than 6 months ago, you and I were discussing how DFO decided that wasn't going to be the way of the future.
Yeah, there was a decision taken at that point. It was challenged in court by the companies, and the companies have been doing a lot of lobbying to keep these pens in place, to keep these operations. They're also throwing a lot of money around in First Nations communities, and they're walking into First Nation communities and saying, "Look, here's $5 million to train your people to work for us in running our aquaculture projects. Here's $5 million right off the top. We're going to give you." They're handing out $5 million checks to all these First Nation communities up and down the West Coast to get them to support their continuation of the aquaculture industry. Look, there's none of this going on in Alaska. They won't allow it. And look how strong the salmon runs are in Alaska for the last number of years. Absolutely stupendous. There's none of this allowed in Oregon State, Washington State, California State. The only place on the West Coast of North America where this happens is in British Columbia. It's on the East Coast too. And again, First Nations, non-First Nations communities, both are, being lured into doing this through money, checks from the industry. So it's a shady bit of business for sure.
And again, we're in a court of law, and we have to have facts. We have to cite the facts that we're using. But at the end of the day, Lawrence, I'm assuming we have firsthand accounts of this money transferring hands. And
yeah. When the First Nations communities come out and say, "Hey, we want this," and it's going to mean jobs. And look, and the fact that the money comes in, it's not being hidden. It's going right into the band's budget and their coffers. It's right there in their reports and their financial reports. So.
Wow, what a step back. Well, that's a few steps back. And that, I feel horrible as it is for our West Coast anglers and, our camps and outfitters that run and depend on these salmon runs. And it just seems as if this is a real step in the wrong direction.
Well, who gets to catch fish out there? Is it the aquaculture industry that gets to grow the fish and catch them in their nets, or is it the small artisanal fishers and the guides and the recreational fishers that get to go out and catch the wild and hatchery fish in the ocean? This is what it's coming down to. Who wins this struggle? Because both aren't going to happen. Not the way it just doesn't seem to work out well.
Well, that's real disappointing. And I would imagine it's going to be a topic that evolves. So instead of spending all our time on it tonight, let's
move on. Yeah.
So
Ocean Tracking Network on the east coast of Canada. There's a thing called, these are the guys and gals that put the tags in salmon and sharks and all sorts of interesting marine and aquatic life and follow them acoustically through GPS and all sorts of various technologies. So they're looking to hire a few people. They're looking for a field technician, and a program manager. So if you're looking for some interesting work in the fish biology industry, there you go. There's a couple options for you on the east coast of Canada. And the Ocean Tracking Network, it's out of Canada, but they work as well with right up and down the east coast of United States and Canada. So it's pretty cool.
If I was, okay, maybe a little more, but let's say 20 years younger,
yeah,
I'd be all over that.
I know, eh?
I'd be all over that.
Oh yeah, and I've interviewed the head of the Ocean Tracking Network, and he's an amazing scientist. So positive, so open, and just out there, out there doing it, man. Just out on the out there doing it, rivers and ocean both.
Incredible. It's that kind of science that I think we need to do more of and pay more attention to. When we're tracking fish and we're understanding the migration of fish, and I think what they've done with striped bass is absolutely remarkable. With sharks as well, mind you, but that's striped bass. Like it's almost like Christmas Eve and the migration of Santa and his 8 tiny reindeer across NORAD. It's fun to watch the migration of the striped bass along the eastern coast, and you get to see it as it unfolds. It's really, really cool. So when it comes to that kind of stuff, you know what? Again, tip of the hat is. It's fascinating as all get out.
They all come out of Chesapeake Bay, right? That's that's their origin.
Well, they're now suggesting, and I think it may have been you also that mentioned that they might be going further north to get some cooler water. So
yeah, it's true. Yeah. They're heading north. Hey, here's something. We missed a few days ago. It was World Wetlands Day, and okay, I'll give you 3 guesses. How much of the world's wetlands reside in Canada, percentage-wise? I'll give you 3 numbers. 15%, 25%, or 35%.
I would say 35%.
25% of all wetlands in the world are right here in Canada. 25% of the wetlands are in here in Canada. That's pretty amazing, right?
It is. That's a quarter of the wetlands in the world.
Of the world. Yeah. It's so important, right? These are the incubators of life, these wetlands, quite often. This is where life, begins, and, it's the terrestrial and water meet and all that activity happens.
That's awesome. Cool stuff.
Alberta has an online map where you can, it identifies all the ice fishing spots in the province. So check that out. Alberta Conservation Authority, go to their website. If you're doing some ice fishing on family fishing weekend coming up, there you go. That's where you get all your information right there. The Alberta Conservation Authority does amazing things. They keep many small trout ponds that they stock over the year. They have bubblers in there to make sure those fish survive the winter. They're really on top of stuff out there. They're really, really engaged in making sure they're good, healthy fisheries.
Right on. Cool. That's really interesting. And yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, the only thing I can think of is it's quite outstanding to have a quarter of the world's wetlands. But at the end of the day, are we going to hand it over to the world in perfect condition like we received it? That's the only thing that concerns me is what are we doing to protect that wetland?
Well, that's a good point. Knowing now what we know, that 25% of the world's wetlands are here in Canada, gives us a little more responsibility, right? It's like if you lived in Brazil and you're thinking about the rainforest, we live in Canada, we got to think about the wetlands.
100%.
So here's something. Does rewarding anglers lead to problems? And this is something. An article was published in Outdoor Canada magazine by a pretty interesting writer, and it's about Saskatchewan's Master Angler program. And what he's saying is that by incentivizing anglers to go out and catch the biggest fish of any species and to get their Master Angler certificate, and I have to admit I did get my Master Angler certificate here in Ontario. The Ontario Federation of Anglers and Hunters has a program, and if you catch certain 5 species, sport fish species of a certain size in a year, and you can document all that, you will get your Master's Angler certificate. And he's saying that maybe this is putting undue pressure on us to go out and catch those giant fish that we shouldn't be targeting all the time. Frankly, I don't know if that's the case. We're always trying to catch fish and big fish. And is this gonna Is this gonna, increase the likelihood of people doing that, or is it just a way of saying, "Hey, good job"? What do you think?
Oh, good question. Because I do have strong opinions on both sides. I have seen, unfortunately, when you do incentivize the catches of anglers, there is a dark side that you need to prepare for. Those who run bass tournaments, I'm sure they see it on a regular basis. But yeah, the master angler, I don't think was ever set up or intended for that purpose. But unfortunately, what it was set up and what it has unfortunately evolved into is not just the promotion of a given body, province, countries, water bodies, and the promotion of those water bodies by showing off big fish. It has unfortunately done exactly what you just said. You have a whole cast of anglers that are out there targeting a size of fish, a class of fish that I would otherwise prefer to see protected to a certain extent. If it, I would have to say the Bay of Quinte walleye I hold near and dear to my heart. Would I prefer not to have them as pressured as they are when it comes to fishing for those larger fish? Yeah, I would have to agree. I wish all folks were like Captain Ed and wouldn't allow any of his plugs to get down below 40 feet. Once they hit the 40 foot, you would get special instructions on how to reel them up. I'm not sure that every captain out in the Bay of Quinte does that, but yeah, you're targeting trophy fish. Every fish that you catch out there could potentially be a giant. Are we doing the utmost to protect those fish when you incentivize a master angler tag that's associated with that? I don't know.
Someone who keeps cycling through the fish one after the other because they need to get that one of a certain length, and then they just get, no, doesn't qualify, maybe you might have something there. You might have something there for sure. Instead of just being happy with what you got, right? You keep trying, and maybe it builds a little bit of the greed thing in us, the pride thing. And that's something we always have to be careful about, is greed and pride, right? That can be our undoing for sure.
What a concept that I had come up with a couple of years back. I was going to do it. Unfortunately, it didn't take off like I had hoped. But I was going to do an egg count release, and based on you talk about incentivizing, based on catch and release, we would somehow come up with a number, whether it was imaginary or good science associated with it. Each walleye that was released was going to have a number of eggs attached to it, of which we were going to put on a spreadsheet, and all those anglers that released their walleye, no matter what the size was, we were going to associate each fish with a designated number of eggs. We were going to do this for a month, and the idea was to incentivize it so that folks who released the most egg count would be rewarded a prize. So not only was it designed for folks to get out there fishing, but to either show release videos or just a picture of you releasing a fish, a walleye, and then associated an egg count with that. And then hopefully we would be able to give a plaque as someone that is truly there for the sake of conservation. So I think there's ideas on how to incentivize it perhaps a little bit better than the Master Angler program. But at the end of the day, when a province wants to promote their fishery, that is by far the best way to do it.
I think too that you can't do one the left without the right. You got to do both hands, and what I mean is you're incentivizing people to catch big fish. You also need to give them the tools to do it sustainably. And you have to say, look, you have to explain how you did this sustainably, and not just the size of the fish, where you caught it, when you caught it, how you caught it, but what did you do with the fish afterwards, and how deep was the water, and what time of the year, and where did you find it? Was it on a spawning bed? Give some information about that fish, and so people start to think about that too, right? And say, oh, if it was off the spawning bed, it's not going to count, or we can get into some more nuancing on this for sure to really use that sort of reward to also give them an incentive to learn more about doing it the best way.
100%.
Oh,
Sonia,
man,
you raised a great comment there in regards to when it comes to catch and release. A lost the tournament last week because I didn't measure a fish because it took the hook pretty deep and was bleeding. I wanted to put him back. It was a rod and reel combo. So at the end of the day, not a huge prize, but certainly something worth winning. But what I still feel better knowing is she lost the combo, but she felt a lot better reviving the fish and getting it back in the wild. So Sonia, we have a bunch of you here. There's a bunch of you watching, just like you, that do enjoy fish and the eating fish from time to time, but at the same token, enjoy the need to push the whole idea of catch and release. Lawrence,
Sonia's the master angler.
Yeah, I'll have to wrap you up there.
Actually,
our half hour has far exceeded itself, and it always does with the wealth of information that you provide us. Again, if you are looking for this podcast, it's available at CFN on our Facebook page, but also on Bluefish Radio, as Lawrence will do his darndest to post it and make sure that it's really available for all of his following as well as ours.
As soon as I upload it to Spreaker, it pops up on Apple Podcasts and a whole bunch of those other podcast streaming services. So it's free. It's out there. Just ask your smart speaker to play the Bluefish Radio Show.
Right on, Lawrence. You have yourself a great week, my friend.
Thanks, buddy. And thanks, everyone, for having me. And we'll talk again soon.
Likewise. Take care, dude. All the best.
You too.
And Jason Barnucz is up right after a word from his sponsor.
The fear of failure is failure itself. The world of science rewards the ones who are willing to try and fail. Because without the courage to embrace failure, ideas remain ideas. But with that courage to fail and to learn, ideas can change the world.
Jay Barnucz in the house.
What's happening?
Well, I'll tell you what most of us aren't able to do is get out and fish and enjoy the outdoors like you and Trevor are. That pairing is tough to keep up with right now. You guys are too busy anglers.
Well, you know, we had a meeting about this.
Oh,
we had a meeting, and the meeting was, what are we going to do with all this questionable ice? So we're switching it up. We're you know, we'll probably do another couple trips up to Simcoe, but to be honest, you know, that's a long drive. Like, dude, I don't like getting up at 4 a.m. every weekend. It's just not my thing. So I figured, you know, let's start looking at other alternatives. And there's so many alternatives when you sit down and get thinking about it. You know, there's walleye season's open down here till the 15th of March. And if we're going to keep with this, as long as we have open water, you know, there's so many great rivers down here, like the Thames and others that have great walleye fishing, Scotty, you know that. You know, some of the spring panfish, that won't really pick up until we get into, you know, we need some warmer temperatures, like these +5, -5 days. Those aren't really getting the water warmed up. Spring pike fishing maybe, but you know what? There's also steelheading. I was just checking our stats. I'll actually share a link here. The local club actually has been busy doing fish lifts at the local dam in Delhi here, and the Big Creek Anglers started up a new Facebook page, and they're going to be putting updates on the page. And it looks like in the past week they've lifted close to 300 steelhead through the ladder. So, you know, like, it's weird how we have a lot of winter left, but spring's trying. Spring's trying. So,
well, I have to agree, Jay. At the end of the day, I think we got to start warming up, pardon the pun, to the idea that spring is upon us. You know, we're starting to see the birds. I don't know about you, but I'm sure, you know, you're a little bit further south than we are.
Yeah.
Here. And I've seen geese come back in great numbers. I'm seeing ducks come back in great numbers. So, you know, I don't know if those lads and lasses got the memo. I know we're only in February, but, you know, do they know something we don't? Because to me, it seems like spring's right around the corner.
It's true, you know, and I don't think like Simcoe's not done yet, but even hearing some of the Simcoe diehards, you know, there's so much of the lake it hasn't been great ice-wise to begin with, and it's just getting worse with the rain and coming. Now the rain that's forecasted for this week isn't going to be as bad as it was, but still 10 10 to 15 millimeters, it's gonna impact the ice. It'll keep ice, like Cook's Bay will stay safe. But even the outfitters are pulling their huts off, and I feel bad. I do. Like, this is, down here, the outfitters, I feel bad for them too, but I think down here, Scotty, they're used to these mild winters. I think if they get out 2 out of 3 winters, they're doing good. And usually I say get out down here, 6 to 8 weeks of ice, safe ice on Long Point Bay. But, some of these outfitters further north, they rely on it a lot more as part of their income. And I feel bad for them. But I'm also happy that they're doing the right thing and keeping people's safety in mind, which, of course, they would. So.
100%. And we saw Tyler Brooks from Sludge Donkey. He was off taking his huts off this weekend up on Georgian Bay. And I know it's tough, for him and a whole host of others that had to do the same thing. But you're not really sacrificing anything but then your bottom line, because at the end of the day, if it saves one life, it's worth every penny.
Yeah. I see George wants me to go back to Simcoe so I don't bias his Creel survey. So, George, in the name of science, I will return to Lake Simcoe just to make sure, and I will track down one of the Creel staff to make sure they get my data.
So for whatever reason, if you're not heading down to the Spring Fishing and Boat Show and you want to head up and do what I think could potentially be one of the last hard water events, because I don't know what the future weather holds, but it's going to get awfully warm this week. We are going to get an awful lot of rain. And if you have gone out this past weekend after that big rainfall we had Friday, you see a lot of uneven ice. And I know, Jay, you see that all the time. But it is, to me anyway, more prominent than I think I've ever seen it, where you will get, your 8-9 inches of ice, and then all of a sudden you get what will be or was ponding of water where it's gone down maybe 3. That kind of up and down. I'm not cool, and I'll have to say, unless I have some kind of guarantee from either an outfitter or someone that actually goes
That's
to,
right.
I'm done. I think my hard water is done for the year. It's a shame, but at the end of the day, it is the fishing show season, and I truly like that as well.
Well, and actually, I was on a call tonight with the Pure Fishing guys, so Berkeley and the gang, and we were talking about the show. I had a quick call with all of our pro staff and ambassadors, and what we're going to be doing at the show this weekend. There's a couple things I can't share. Yeah. Now, George, you stop picking on my results, okay? Like I haven't been out ice fishing a whole lot. There's some good days and some bad days, and I've had more mediocre days this year. Geez, George is putting the pressure on me. This weekend's going to be cool. It's kind of nice to not actually think about ice fishing right now and worried about where I have to spud and chisel next. I don't have to worry about falling through the floor of the International Center, Scotty. You know what? The Pure Fishing team has really stepped up this year. We got a lot of promos coming. There's a couple I can't talk about. You have to come to the show to see them, but there's a couple of cool ones. But, some of the ones we got every year, if you want to buy a new Fenwick rod, you can get a Fenwick hat. You want to buy a new Abu Garcia reel, the new Revos are out. Get an Abu hat. So there's some cool stuff going on, and everyone's running promos like that. I think the supply chain's actually caught up as well. And one thing that a lot of anglers, myself included, we want to see at the show is the new products that have come out, and not only see them at the corporate booths, but also purchase them if we want to. And I think you're going to see a lot of products. I know Berkeley's got a lot of new baits out that I've talked about on this show, and they'll be available at the fishing show this weekend. So and buy your tickets in advance too. There's if you buy them online, it saves you waiting in line. You just show your ticket and off you go. It's pretty handy. So follow the Spring Fishing and Boat Show page, and make sure you there might be some deals coming out with Valentine's Day tomorrow. Who knows, they might push some deals. So
that might be the only thing that the shows do better than us every Monday is that not only because I don't see a lot of it, Jay. Like, I mean, a lot of folks, they'll talk about certain things, technological advancements, like when live scope came to be. Everybody was talking about live scope, and everybody did their own how-to DIY or whatever it was on their YouTube channel in regards to it. But when it comes to the individual baits, I don't see a lot of folks spending a lot of time on the individual baits themselves. And not only that, even if they did, of course, the show takes it one step further, because in a lot of cases they're readily available and they're at the show. So you could kill two birds with one stone. You can make sure you have a great idea that the concept that you think that bait does, or perhaps how it acts or presents itself, you can verify at the show, ask the pros, to give you an explanation, their feedback, and then you can just go and buy it.
Yeah, and that's one thing that's great about the trade shows is the corporate booths are there to show off the new products. They're not available for sale in the corporate booth. So if you're coming to the show and you want to buy something new, you want to come see me in the corporate booth, I'll show you the products that we have. If you want to buy it, I'll walk you to a vendor that's selling that product. And we want to make sure that the vendors who are coming to the shows, that they have good sales. So and we're working directly with sales staff who, all of our sales staff we work with, they're all into angling, but sales is their first job, right? So I actually enjoy the shows for that reason. I get to see a lot of behind the scenes of how things are promoted, and I look at the product lines and how they promote them. It's been pretty cool. I was even on a call 2 weeks ago with the Abu Garcia research and development team, talking about the new reels that have come out and the technology has gone into them. And if anyone is an Abu fan on here, there's a guy from Australia, Andrew Wheeler, who has this crazy Australian accent. He was on the call, so it was pretty cool to work with them. And I guess I might as well mention, I didn't even think about this until today, I got 10 years in now with Pure Fishing as of this month. So I got 10 years with Berkeley and them. So it was 10 years ago this month, I was headed to the Toronto Sportsman Show. Remember when they had the Sportsman Show down at the it moved so many times. They moved it back to the exhibition grounds after it was downtown. Yeah. The first year back was my first year with Pure Fishing, and I was doing seminars on the tank with Jim, and it was pretty cool. So that was my. Now I've been to the shows before, but that was my first time with Pure Fishing. That was the year that Bob. I remember when Bob unveiled the new Berkeley jersey. It was kind of a moment in time. So kind of like the Kevin Van Dam retirement party today.
I was going to say, as an avid bass angler and someone that I'm sure you follow KVD a lot, were you shocked to see the news, or were you excited for him? What was your feelings?
I'm not shocked to see the news. I think that part of me thinks, you look at like Rick Clunn, and Rick Clunn's still fishing. He's in his 70s, right? Kevin's not as old as Rick, but Kevin's done so much. And I made a comment in the chat earlier about, Kevin is the Wayne Gretzky of bass fishing. Yeah. He's got records, Angler of the Year wins, Classic wins, like just first place finishes in tournaments. He has so many records. And there was a great podcast today. If anyone who's on YouTube or listens to the podcast, Bass Talk Live with Matt Pangarak. He had a last minute call with Kevin, with Mark Zona, who's Kevin's best friend. And then he actually interviewed Ken Duke. And Ken Duke used to be a writer for Bass. Now he's the editor of Fishing Tackle magazine. And Ken Duke, he is the encyclopedia of bass fishing. And so they went through a lot of Kevin's milestones and on that podcast. So if you're really into that, you want to hear about the history of Kevin Van Dam, check out the podcast from today on Bass Talk Live. Absolutely. It was very cool. So I'm not surprised, but definitely came out of nowhere. Like no one was talking about it. And he is a guy who, like Scotty, he carries, it's not just his brand and his name, like Jim touched on that, but even in the podcast today, Ken Duke mentioned, during some tough times, like about 10 to 15 years ago, we've gone through some sort of recession type periods. Brands that had Kevin as their main guy, like we're going to talk about Quantum, Strike King, a lot of those brands weathered those times well, and Ken attributed that to Kevin Van Dam. Just because, fishing does well during poor times. That's kind of because fishing is something everybody can do. But brands that Kevin was the face for did well. They weathered those storms really well because he was just a great ambassador, and not just his fishing accolades, just a good guy and a good representative of the sport. So,
I loved the order in which he thanked the appropriate people, obviously his family, his sponsors and partners that have got him through, as you said, some tough times, but have been there to support him. But I think his biggest accolade and thank you was to the fans. And he said, without you folks, like, this just doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'd almost have to agree with him. Certainly not at the extent that it does down in the U.S. I mean, if you ever go to a classic, you ever have the pleasure of seeing that, that is not just a fishing tournament. That is a complete trade show. And it is all decked out for
it is the most, and I know it's bass fishing centric, but it is the greatest trade show to go see if you just like fishing. And the event, like to go see the classic, to go see the hype, it's kind of if you like WWE, NASCAR, that, like, honestly, and I'm not a NASCAR WWE fan. And when I took Heather to her first one, she's like, this is like going to a WWE event, like the pyrotechnics and the way Mercer does his thing on stage. It is just something to see and behold. And if any, and this year I wish I could go. I just don't have the time. But it's in Knoxville this year. Like, Scotty, it's 10 hours away. It's a day's drive to Knoxville. I'd love to go, and who knows if I will or not. But I don't think so this year. But it's man, I'd love to go. So, Sonia, I have to jump on a question here. So,
yeah.
Berkley has lots of baits not available in Canada. Sonia, whatever you're looking for, you tune into the show regularly. You want something from Berkley? Let me find it for you. You send me a message and I'll find it for you.
There you go.
I live in rural southwestern Ontario. I don't have a lot of shops near me. I have a couple Canadian Tires. So I work, not only do I work with dealers, with promotions, but I also purchase from dealers. So Natural Sports, Gagnon's, Fishing World, they all have great websites. You can order just about anything from anybody right now. So if you're looking for something, you just let me know.
Wow. Heard it here first. So not only is he a pretty face, but an intelligent guy when it comes to fishing, but very resourceful. He is the radar of Berkley.
Yeah, I do what I can. And trust me, if there's something that Berkley has and I want it and I don't have it yet, I will find it. And not just to get a discount. I'll pay retail if I want it. If I want to use it, I'll find it. So
that's awesome. Jay, as always, as we talked about, we've been sort of dancing around the issue, but of course the shows are coming up. It's a different kind of season. Different, obviously, for yourself, who's a presenter, and someone that people are going to see. For some of us, most of us anyway, it is basically a reunion, a yearly annual reunion that allows us to get together, see one another, because we usually do it all on social media. And as great as that is, it's great to have the one-on-one talks and discussions with a lot of CFNers that we're able to maybe answer questions that they don't feel are appropriate to ask, maybe via live, or maybe they're just, I don't know, they're apprehensive to ask the question in the first place. But really cool when we get that chance to meet you at the booth or talk to you around a corner or after the stage that we've done a presentation. We want you folks to come out and say hello.
Yep.
It means the world. But is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to with the shows other than the Berkley announcements?
The shows are like, I look forward to the shows because I get to see all these people. The only thing that sucks about the show is that it's usually busy. So I'm busy. I'm busy talking fishing because I want to try and talk to as many people as I can. So, but there's also some good times to come by. So, absolutely, if you want to come by and ask me questions, like, track me down. I'll be at the Berkley booth. You'll see Berkley and Abu Garcia and Fenwick. So I'll be at the Pier Fishing booth for the weekend, all 3 days. If you want to track me down, come find me there. or, you know, come look for me even after the show. Like, you know, usually the first thing in the morning or later in the afternoon is always a good time. You know, and if I don't talk to you for too long, it's only because I'm busy and I want to make sure I talk to everybody. But yeah, like I just look forward to seeing everybody, Scotty, and it's been a long time. I know last year Andy tried to have the show and it didn't happen. And then we had the Sportsman show in March last year, and it was okay, but it was very last minute, very rushed, and they pulled it off. And so kudos to the organizers there. And they have another great show coming up in March this year. So I'm happy to say that, you know, the spring fishing show is back. It's going to be a real reunion of a lot of people. So if people want to, you know, just come and talk to people. Don't feel any pressure to buy stuff. A lot of times the show is actually good to come see everything that you're looking for. And if you want to plan to purchase things after, that's fine too. Don't tell any salespeople I just said that might be listening in. But it's a great time to just, you know, so for example, if there's a new reel you want to check out, go to the corporate booth and get your hands on that reel. You know, talk about the new features with the staff that are there. If you want to learn about electronics, go to the Humminbird booth. I'm sure Radio World will have a booth at the show this year. Some great knowledgeable people, regardless of what you're into. There's going to be kayaks there. There's going to be boats there. You know, so stuff that even like maybe you've been thinking about. I'm thinking about buying a boat, or I'm thinking about buying a kayak, but I'm not sure. This is the opportunity, because everything is under one roof. So you may not find the reel you're looking for, or the kayak you're looking for, or whatever. You may not find it this weekend, but you will make connections with people who might know where to get that down the road. So when you're ready to buy that item, these are the people that you want to talk to. That's what's great about the shows, you know. And also too, there's free parking at the International Center. I'm going to recommend, if you do go, get there early, because the parking lot fills up. But definitely go and just network with people and talk to people in the booth. You know, and I'm just looking forward to seeing a bunch of CFN folks there, Scotty, that I haven't. I could probably list more people that I haven't met in person than I have at this point. You know, like, think about this, dude. I've been doing Monday Night Live for going on 3 years.
I was going to say it's either 3 or 4. We're going on to 4.
I want to say it was right after the pandemic started.
Yeah.
Right. So we're looking at 3 years of Monday Night Live, and I'm going to say there's way more CFNers that I haven't met than I've met, just because of that. So yeah, I'm just looking forward to seeing as many people as I can, and you know, networking with them and chatting fishing with them, right?
That's what it's all about. Now, obviously, you may end up on Simcoe, you may end up on Cooch, you may end up on Nipissing, depending on where it is that you travel. You have mentioned about Steelhead that, you know, you're looking forward to that season starting, but you know, when it comes to your ice fishing prowess and what you and Trevor have been up to recently, what are some of the things that are you still seeing the trend that when you started ice fishing this season, you're still seeing now, or has the fish or the presentations changed a little bit?
You know what? It's kind of funny you say that, because even though we've had warm conditions and open water periods, right? A lot of open water down where we are. When we've been out recently, the fishing has been spotty, almost like, and I was thinking about this the other day. I'm like, you know, we hear about first ice, midwinter, and last ice, and usually first ice and last ice is the best fishing. Like, the fish that we've been catching in that middle period, even though we've had some open water and some like spring-like temperatures, those fish are still in a negative or neutral mood. You know, they're not aggressively feeding. Like, we went out crappie fishing last weekend, and you know, we caught some. It was great to get out. It wasn't gangbusters. Like, you know, when you haven't been out doing it much, you just want to go out and smash them. And it didn't happen. We caught them. Probably for the average person, and for us included, you're like, oh, that's not a bad day. But boy, you really want to, man, this winter's been so hit and miss with fishing. You really just want to jack them on that day, but we didn't. It was still good to get out. And that's the thing, Scotty. Like, I still think the fish are in that sort of, you know, negative mood, because it's midwinter, regardless of where you are. But as the days get longer and more photo period, and the fish will start, getting conditioned to that. I think that's a big part of it. I think that midwinter blues, we talk about ice fishing, when you have, whether you have like 3 feet of ice or 3 inches of ice, it's still the midwinter blues. And until we start to see longer days and we start getting some of the ecosystem kind of get going again, and the bugs start to move around and the plants start to photosynthesize, we're not going to see great fishing. There's going to be good days. I'm not saying it's bad fishing everywhere right now, but I think right now you got to work at it regardless of the conditions that we have. But it will change. It will change for sure. So,
George, you're 100% right. As much as Jay Barnucz is not welcome on Nipissing, he does bring up a good point. In February, it does slow down, and simply because the water temperatures. I was out, and I love getting out on the hard water for no other reason than you get to put a camera down and you get to see what the fish are doing. It's no different than owning an aquarium. You could just sit there and watch the fish swim around forever. But it was really interesting to see a particular bass. Lowered the camera down, saw it just basically on the weed edge. You could see the back pectoral fin and tail fin, and you knew it was a bass, and it was a big girl. So I have to ask this question, and I know this might be a little off the rails from what we're talking about. What was really interesting is that fish was on the bottom and it was not moving.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some folks will say, well, it was sleeping, it was hibernating, whatever you want to call it. But what was above that fish were 3 males, and you could tell they were male bass. Mm-hmm. The male bass were hovering. It looked like it could be any day during July or August. They were hanging out, nice weed bed. They were obviously not on the prowl like they normally would if they're in the feeding. But it almost seemed as if that they were protecting the female, or they were looking after something. Now, I know obviously they're not spawning, but do bass do that by chance? Like, do they look after one another when it comes to, the hard water season?
I don't think so, but I know that studies have shown that bass just don't move in winter. And I actually saw a cool video recently where it was on Lake Simcoe, and a guy was fishing for whitefish in fairly shallow water. I'm going to guess around 20 feet because you could see the bottom fairly clearly. And he was fishing what looked like a boulder. Now, there was a boulder in the view, like a big boulder. And I think he's working like a Meigs. So he's working his Meigs lure by the boulder. And he did a couple still shots with his cell phone camera. And there's another boulder beside the big boulder. And it was there for like 30 minutes. And then it moved like a foot or two. And it was a big smallmouth that had just parked itself and did not want to go anywhere. And, but they do. So I think a lot of bass that I've observed in the winter, whether angling for them or whether, actually, we catch them incidentally, that happens, right? I find that you'll actually see some of them actually have mud on their bellies, like where they've been sitting on the bottom. But I find a lot of the bass in some of the lakes around here, you catch them in the wintertime. They're not big. I call them wolf pack fish. So and if you read about bass biology, there's sort of this 1.5 to about 2 pound size where most of them are males, and they're not mature breeding males yet, and they'll wolf pack up together and kind of cruise around. And it's almost like you came across a little wolf pack of, it's like adolescent bass is what I should say. They're probably able to breed, but they're not quite big enough yet to make a difference in the population.
They actually, the ones that were I would say standing guard were obviously visibly more aggressive. The fish that was on bottom was not interested in anything that I was doing, or it just laid on the bottom, which was perfect. The only problem, of course, is it wasn't really attracting a lot of fish, and I ended up having to move the hut because if that thing's there, it's like having an owl on the rooftop. Like birds aren't going to land. So nothing really of any substance came around it. And once I moved away, the fishing definitely picked up. But I just thought it was really interesting that these 3 males were hovering up over top of the female, if you will, almost as if they were standing guard. And that female she was massive. She was a big girl.
So that's an interesting point that George makes there about bass behavior. So smallmouth bass have been observed in large congregations, bottom oriented, but during certain days they'll rise up off the bottom like a fountain pattern, and then they'll fall back down. And I've read about, so I talk about this mud on the belly of the fish. I've read bass fishing articles that actually mention this. And if you're fishing, especially in like, well, in the US they have spring bass fishing, right? Like early spring, like April, pre-spawn. And then in the fall, when they have this like late fall, early winter period and we're talking water temperatures probably below 50, probably below 45. And a lot of bass pros will, when they catch fish, they'll actually look at the fish to see, is there sediment on the belly of the bass? Is it darker on the belly? Because if they lay on the bottom long enough, like the mud will actually like stick to them a little bit, or it'll be a little bit darker in color. And now this has never been tested. This is just stuff I've read about, but I have seen the sediment. I've seen the mud on the bass, and it's not a lot. You'll just see like little bits of it, but clearly they had to be sitting on the bottom, right? Yeah. So this is kind of an interesting point that George is sort of maybe supporting my theory that these fish just lay on the bottom and then they'll all of a sudden move. And I'm sure that bass feed in the wintertime if given the opportunity to, like, because I've caught them. Like I've had places in the wintertime, Scotty, where like I've moved, where it's like, I can remember one time going to a lake up in north of Peterborough, south of Halliburton, and it's a lake trout walleye lake. It's a nice fishing lake in the wintertime, right? And dude, we were smashing the smallmouth on this shoal. Like we were this shoal topped out at 30 feet of water, surrounded by like 75 feet of water. And we were there to catch walleye and lake trout. But the one day we went there and all we caught were big smallmouth for about an hour. And we just like, and I'm not just me in one hole. Like we tried. So I'm like, you'd fish one hole and you're like, okay, well, I got 2 smallmouth, I'm moving. And then I'll go over here 20, 30 yards. And on this huge shoal, I don't know how many bass were on the shoal, but there was a lot. And the 4 of us, I was with 3 other buddies, we fully like relocated to a different part of the lake. I'm like, we cannot shake these smallmouth. They're just laying here on the top of this hump. And there was a lot of them. It was actually impressive. And I've seen that before with largemouth in some of the little tiny kettle lakes around here where they just aggregate together, but they will just group up. And I don't know why they're grouping at this one spot sometimes, because I'm fishing areas where it's just like a kettle lake or it's a big bowl. Mm-hmm. But they're there for a reason, and we have to move the hut because all we're catching are bass.
Yeah,
so,
and great. It was great bass habitat. Yes, and George, the fish that were suspended were very catchable. I certainly wasn't targeting them by any means, but they were very catchable.
Yep.
They were eating. It wasn't like when they're protecting the nest, sometimes they'll just charge it, whatever it is, and they'll get it entangled on their face,
Yep.
treble in the gill or whatever. They were actually eating it. So yeah, they were definitely feeding, but it was amazing just how they sat there. Now, the one thing I will say, some of the, and I love getting strike videos. The walleye in this particular body of water, I mean, you talk about voracious. You couldn't even see it. If you blinked your eye, you would miss it. So you'd be jigging, and there would be, let's say, a dozen small perch, just swimming around. A dozen small perch, and you're this plastic, whatever it is that you're feathering, is doing its thing. But there's all these fish, and out of friggin' nowhere, bam! You didn't even see it coming.
Yeah.
The perch don't even move because it's so fast. This walleye comes out of nowhere, and instead of striking any of the 12 perch that are sitting around this plastic, hones in on that plastic and just smashes it. So it's pretty cool to see. Yeah, a lot of folks say that when it comes to walleye fishing, it's like dragging in a wet boot. Yeah, I can certainly see that. But to see them in their natural habitat and the way they hunt, man, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, it is. That's the thing too. Like all my experiences, that I'm not a super avid walleye ice angler, but I find either you have to finesse the hell out of them, even the big ones, or you just be sitting there on your flasher and nothing, and then all of a sudden just bang. Like you just keep that cadence. Whatever cadence you found has been working. Usually with my buddies, we figure out what's the cadence, not just the lure, but the cadence of that lure. And even though you're not marking a fish, I just like to keep that cadence going, and eventually they'll just come in. And a lot of times they won't come in and just look; they'll just come in and smash it, just absolutely crush it.
Interesting, Mike Howard. That is a really interesting tip. Walleye tip with plastic swim baits, pieces of garlic clove on the hook. Interesting. I have never heard that. I've used the Bang garlic spray, and I've had lots of success, especially with hair jigs with that. I've never heard that. That's interesting.
Never tried that. But these garlic ideas, these garlic concoctions that, I think Bang garlic spray is probably the most popular one out there.
Yeah.
That had to come from somewhere. I've never tried the clove of garlic, but
I will say this, and not that I'm sponsored, but one difference that I am going to start warming up to, if you haven't already heard me do it, is that bait fuel. What a difference. And I saw it firsthand. I'd put a little bit of bait fuel on the plastic, and they would just come in by the dozen. You would feather just a piece of plastic with nothing on it. Yeah, you get the odd fish that would come in and look at it, and most of them were looking away for the predators. They weren't looking at the bait. As soon as you put a little bit of that bait fuel on, what a difference. So, yeah, if there's any tip I can offer you folks is pick up some bait fuel.
I haven't actually tried the bait fuel myself, but, I've heard it works well. I've just been using the Berkeley Gulp for so long now. That's what I prefer to use.
Yeah.
But but I think the message here is it is really important to use scent, and I think that scent, and even ice fishing. Like I told, I don't have one here with me, but I've even told people this before. Take your favorite ice fishing plastics that you want to use, and the little bait pucks that I keep my maggots in, those little pucks with the screw tops. Drop a few of your little microplastics, in that little bait puck, and then put your favorite scent in there and stir it around and keep that in your other pocket. So I like to use plastics for ice fishing, but I also use live bait at times, usually maggots for perch or panfish.
Mm-hmm.
So I have two pucks, and they're different colors. Yellow is my maggots, and my red or my blue puck is my plastics. And I let them marinate in that for the whole winter, basically. You don't need a lot of bait juice to marinate a dozen little plastics like that, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, absolutely. That scent is just something that we should do. And I think that we don't talk about that a lot with ice fishing, because your Gulp spray will freeze. Like a lot of these scents, a lot of the good scents, by the way, if people are listening, the good scents are actually water-based, not oil-based. So a lot of the better scents out there are water-based, so they can mix with the water better. So it's not only fish taking your bait and tasting it, but having a water-based scent where the water disperses into the water. Sorry, the scent disperses into the water, so the fish can actually smell it as they're getting up to it, and then they taste it when they grab it. And that was actually in a video, and it was funny because I remember that video we talked about with fish displacement.
Mm-hmm.
That bass fishing headquarters. They had another video about scent on there, and I just watched it, and then George actually sent it to me as well, and it was very cool. They talked about that, where in it now a very bass centric video again, but talking about the difference between smelling and tasting, because that's two different things. And with bass, they actually figured out that how can a bass get back to the test was, how can they get back to a spawning bed? So if you catch a male bass and you release it far away, how can they get back? So not only did that was the control group where the fish just got to swim back. Then they had different out groups, Scotty, where they covered their eyes with a temporary solution. And then they actually had another one where they put Vaseline inside their nostrils to affect their olfactory nerves. And they tried the third group was they put magnets on the heads so that they couldn't orient with the magnetic field of the earth. So you have no control, You have blind fish, fish that can't smell, and you have fish with magnets on their heads. I'm not even making this up. This study was done with the Cook Lab on Lake Appinicon. The group that had the hardest time finding their way back to their original spawning nest was the ones who couldn't smell. They had the hardest time.
Really?
Fascinating study. Fascinating study. Yeah. So those fish can actually smell their way back.
Well,
And
I mean, let's face it. We say they're imprinted to a river. What is that imprint? It goes into their DNA. What is it? Is it the smell? Is it the water temperature? Is it the rock that they were born at? No. I would have to say you're right. It's 100% the taste.
See,
of water.
Alicia jumped on here late. This is like the bonus track at the end of the CD for any Gen Xers out there. Okay, so
and that looked like a really cool old OWA event that they just recently had. I thought it was really cool.
Yeah. I tell this to Yvonne once in a while, and I keep it this quiet, but I tell her once in a while, I am insanely jealous of your events. They look so much fun. Yeah. So much fun. Like genuinely people enjoying the sport of fishing.
100%.
Like, and just to see how everyone pitches in, helps everybody out. I like to see who was all there because I know a bunch of them. So like, oh, there's Alicia and I guess he's Sonia. And I'm like, because I'm even more jealous because I'm like, oh, people that we know are there doing fun things.
100%.
And but I know I get their I want to say mandate. That sounds too official, but I get it, and I just have to say that I'm just very jealous of their fun events that they have. So cool, so cool.
Well, we'll have to get you up to one of our retreats, either at McIntosh or Horwood, and we'll show you how CFN parties. No, I'm just kidding, but I look forward to those two events each year, especially the one at Horwood that we've been doing for. This is now going into
and that is definitely on the bucket list. Trust me, it's on the list. But I have to share because I know we're going to wrap this up soon. I want to share something in the chat. So I came across this article that the Michigan DNR did looking at barotrauma, and I really recommend people read this article. They looked at crappie, and I know there's been other barotrauma work. I know even Steve Cook right now is doing work on barotrauma on Nipissing, I believe, But what they did was in Minnesota, and you can read the article. And now this isn't a formal scientific paper. This is just a news article discussing the results. But what they did was they took 50 crappie, and they caught them out of like 30 to 40 feet of water, right? And the depth was 40 feet. Then they put all the fish into a big hoop net under the ice, Scotty, and the fish could go down to the bottom or stay at the top. They could do what they wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened is a high percentage of those fish did not make it. They either died from their barotrauma, and then another high percentage, they called them not releasable. And I saw George's comments earlier today about catch and release is great, but I'm big on, you've let we go through this with the fish off every year, Scotty, where it's like, fish handling, like the fish rolling around in the gravel at the side of the road. It's gotten way better over the years. Truly has. But fish handling is so important, and getting those fish unhooked quickly and having your tools available, geez, always on my desk here, like your forceps or your hook removers or whatever, being prepared like that. And we don't talk about that enough. But in this case with barotrauma, all you can do in that situation is you have to move. If you're fishing for crappie out of 40 feet of water, even if you release them right away, it's likely going to cause barotrauma.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good resource to follow. There has been a lot that has been shared tonight in regards to that. Some stuff we'll definitely have to follow up, but we will definitely follow up on a few things when we see one another this Friday again. We're going to be at the Spring Fishing and Boat Show. And, of course, our good buddy Jason Barnucz is a feature. Are you on the tank? You doing No,
I'm not doing any talks this time around, which is totally fine with me. Yeah.
Well, listen, I've reached out to Jim, and depending on how the show goes for him, if for whatever reason he's not able to do it Friday, I'd love for you to join me. We're going to have Moose walking around the show Friday night. And if you'd like to join me at the CFN booth or the OFC Nation booth, and we'll do, it's probably going to be, I don't know, no more than an hour, just right at the end of the show before everybody goes home when the crowds die down. Moose is going to do what he does best, and he's the mayor of fishing, and he'll go around and introduce us to people that we've probably never heard of, never met. No, I'm just kidding. But,
you know what? That's great. And like especially Friday night's a good time to do that, because it's usually right after supper around 6. Like, no offense to Andy or anyone else, but usually the foot traffic just nosedives after 6 o'clock. Yeah. So that's a great time to get out. But listen, George, I was going to mention this too. This weekend is family fishing weekend in Ontario. So if you're not going to the show, and the show is only 1 day, or sorry, 3 days, but family day is on the Monday. And so you're probably only going to go to the show for 1 day out of those 3 if you go.
That's right.
So go fishing this weekend. Take someone fishing who hasn't been. Get out on the ice if it's safe, or just go somewhere. If you're in southwestern Ontario, go walleye fishing on the Thames River. Do something. Go fishing for sure.
100%. Jay, as always, my friend, really appreciate you joining us each Monday and bringing what you bring to our community. I look forward to seeing you this weekend. And until then, bud, drive safe, stay safe, and just keep being you.
See you at the show, buddy. Going to be fun.
Right. All right. You take care. Say hi to Trevor for me and the rest of the family.
I will. Maybe you'll see him.
All right. Well, guys, it is the end of a show. Great show. Appreciate everybody who stuck it out as long as you have. We do from time to time go to the 2 hours, but how do you condense it? It's tough to condense. And I don't want to take anything away from our presenters, because we proudly feature them because of what they bring. And you folks obviously appreciate it as well. And we thank you for spending as much time as you do each and every Monday and following the page. Again, if you have any edits, please send them in to our editing team, Walter and Steve. Myself sometimes, but more so Walter and Steve are looking after that. Steve especially has been busy. He had to take off here. I would imagine it's probably because he's picking up his family from the airport. But needless to say, we appreciate everything he does. But if you want an edit done, please hit the message button on the Canadian Fishing Network Facebook page. Send it in like all of you folks have been doing. And I love the stories that go along with it. Some great stories. But again, all you families, focus on the family. We'll be watching you this month. There's only a couple weeks left. So get out there with your families, do your thing, and just know CFN is watching. As I said, Tourney Tuesdays is going to be tomorrow. We'll do Winter Fish Fest second week wrap up. So stay tuned to that. And if I don't see you tomorrow, I will definitely see you on Friday at the Spring Fishing and Boat Show. Until then, you guys have yourself a great week. Go fishing, have fun, enjoy your family, and be safe. Dave, take us away, buddy.
Well, as much as I hate to admit it, I guess we've run out of time. So I've enjoyed it, but I'm going to do something I haven't done since season 1. Turn out the lights, the party's over. They say that all